Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of E&Ftv. Today we are joined by a very good friend of mine, and you may recognize her from a past episode that we did, I think it was last year. We're back with Sarah Duncan. So thank you very much for joining us again, Sarah. I was going to say founder of Sleeping Lion, but now we're looking at founder of Expert Advice Sleeping Lion.
Yeah.
So welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me back.
No, it's good to have you back. And I know there's been a lot of developments your end, which is why I was keen to get you on. And also, I saw you on stage doing your thing at the last RMAPI event as well, which spurred me on to drop you a message. So I suppose first off, Sarah, why don't we go into the fact that your business name has changed, how that's come about and what's been going on?
Right. Okay. So, yes. So for however many years, I set up Sleeping Lion 15 years ago. But basically, my husband has had his business for about 20 years, and that's Expert Advice. And we decided it made sense for us to merge the two companies a couple of years ago. But I wasn't going to give up Sleeping Lion, and he wasn't going to give up Expert Advice. And so we just decided, well, let's just call it Expert Advice Sleeping Lion, or actually Easel, as we're now condensing it down to.
Okay, I like it.
So that happened a few years ago, and kind of one of the main reasons for that was for us to pool resources and to kind of come together and really focus on what we wanted to do. But also it made sense because we were starting to think about B Corp. And we wanted, that one entity for us to kind of focus attention and also focus our kind of B Corp journey, if you like.
Yeah. And I suppose that transition, because again, obviously there's already a relationship there as well, but that transition from going just Sleeping Lion to now Expert Advice Sleeping Lion, as we were saying just before we started recording, that's now broadened the view of what obviously you do. But I suppose, what's that transition been like, and that change, I suppose, and I suppose the response from the industry?
Well, you have to start talking to somebody else about stuff, which is is a bit of a change,
challenge, but
a bit of a challenge. No, but I mean, the other thing which made sense was because I'd written a couple of books under the Concise Advice series. And my husband had actually founded that series with the publisher about 10 years ago. Yeah. And he has another 8 titles within the series. So suddenly we were seeing this kind of growing library of books and thought, well, it kind of makes sense for us to make that the kind of anchor point of a business, and to merge it just made sense. I mean, I was already doing training. We were doing lots of things together anyway. It just made sense to bring it all under one roof, really. Well, we're already under one roof, but under one entity.
No, amazing. And I suppose for the benefit of our viewers now, just in case they didn't see the last episode, or in case they don't know who you are or anything like that, can you just give us a quick brief as to what it is that you guys do for your clients, and why they should be obviously wanting to get in touch?
Sure. So first of all, I guess the relevant point here is that my background is hospitality. So I started life many, many years back in 5-star hotels in London. So I worked with the Savoy Group for a number of years. I also did hospitality private club development in Asia for 6 or 7 years. And so my kind of heartland, if you like, is hospitality. And when I set up my own consultancy, it was broadly around marketing and business development. A lot of my clients were hospitality clients, but that sort of developed over time. My husband's background is advertising, media, marketing. And so he's done an awful lot of work in that area: consultancy, training, facilitation. Right. And so collectively now we do a number of things. My things changed also in the last few years, because I had my kind of epiphany, as I call it, about 7 years ago, where I was starting to just understand this whole area of sustainability. Right. It was starting to get talked about, and I was starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable about maybe not knowing enough about it. and so I started to study and to read, and that was when I kind of transitioned, if you like, over to becoming, still doing marketing at times, but really more and more now I advise clients around sustainability and ESG.
Yeah.
I do consultancy work and I do a lot of training work.
Right.
But I also have the other part of the business, which is broader training, which goes also into things like presentation skills, creativity,
Sure.
smart working behavior, those kinds of things. So it all sits quite nicely together. I guess the best you could say is that I'm the sustainability queen, and he's the king of everything else.
I'm sure he'd be happy with that. I'm sure. I love that. Well, last time you were on, you had a book out, which was the ethical business book.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you have a new book out,
yes.
focused around sustainability and so on. So I'd love to hear about the book. I'd love to hear, I suppose, what your aim is for people when they get it, and how it came about, I guess.
Sure. So yes, I did the ethical business book back in 2019, and to be honest with you, that was really me just reading loads of books and going, "Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting.
Sure.
Let's kind of throw them all together into a book because people might find that useful." Whereas the sustainable business book was much more of a process and a framework for businesses, and the reason for that was that, you know, I'm talking to lots of businesses at the moment, and you know, people are struggling with this whole area, but unfortunately, a lot of people are they're stampeding towards telling people all the promises they're making, the kind of marketing stuff, without actually working through a process to establish why they're doing it.
Yeah.
You know, what the point is, what the long-term strategy is. And so, kind of born out of that frustration, really, we decided to create a book that had a framework, and through that we invented the PLANET system.
Right.
And so the PLANET system stands for panic, learn, agree, navigate, enact, tell. So the whole point is that before you go leaping to telling people all the stuff that you may or may not do by 2030, never. It's actually about going back to basics and working out how this is affecting your business, what effect it's going to have in the long run. And you know, we are now seeing more and more businesses starting to panic because of the risks associated with this, and to really learn about what it means to you and your people and your stakeholders, your customers, and then get everyone on board by agreeing what your strategy should be, recognize it's not going to be easy, navigate the hurdles, and then start actually doing stuff before you hand it all over to the marketing department. So that's it. So it's really about giving people a process. It's a really complex area, and this hopefully gives people kind of stepping stones, I suppose.
Well, that was the thing that I loved about the first one, and it's obviously been translated into the second one, is that I wouldn't say it's bite-sized, but you're able to follow it very easily. You know, and as you say, it's a complex issue and it's a complex sort of thing to overcome, but you've created something that allows somebody to gradually work through it rather than trying to tackle it as a whole. Because there was actually somebody else that came onto the show very recently, and she was talking about getting her clients to commit to micro commitments. So rather than tackling the big issue at the end of the corridor or the end of the, you know, street or whatever, we're just gradually getting there. And I think that's the change of mindset I think that a lot of people need, especially with the big problems. That one was more around inclusion within your team and things, whereas this is arguably just as big, if not bigger, because it's the planet and sustainability. So I suppose that's one big thing that I took away from your books, is that it's created a way for somebody to follow it in a, again, I don't want to use the word bite size because I don't want to trivialize it, but it does.
I'm happy with bite size, to be honest with you. I often say to people that the books are they're kind of like sort of, sustainability for dummies, but even more concise and even even shorter, even simpler.
And it's the size of like a handheld book that you could just keep with you,
No, I mean, that is entirely, that's everything that we try and do is take lots and lots and lots of complex knowledge and bits and pieces and condense it down into stuff that people can actually act on.
Yeah.
Because it is frustrating in this area. We talk about it a lot, this kind of policy execution gap.
Mm-hmm.
There's loads of people talking about, this policy and that policy and net zero and B Corps and things like that. All this grand big stuff at the top. But when you actually look at what people are doing, it's there's a huge gap between promises and execution. And we just want, a bit like it sounds like the other person you were talking about that we're talking to, we just want to be able to help people do something. And then when you've done something, do something else. And then when you've done that, do something else.
Yes.
And gradually it will change people's culture and behavior, and people will just start doing things differently.
Yeah. And because the other big thing, and I know that I've said this to you in the past, and that I think I brought it up at the Almapi event, in fact. I said the same thing about inclusion, is that you find, unfortunately, that there is a culture of box ticking. And I imagine you've come across that. And I'd be interested to hear maybe what your angle is with trying to, when you identify a business that unfortunately is going down that route, are they able to be saved? Because as soon as you have a situation, because I've seen it myself, as soon as you have a situation where you have somebody that is just saying, well, we want to do the big announcement, so we just got a box tick. If we've just got to do the bare minimum so we can announce it. But there's actually no commitment. There's no sort of investment in that value. It's just, well, everyone else is doing it, or we need to be seen to do it. And I can't imagine that you haven't experienced this or seen it. But what's your tackle on that? What's your tackle, or how do you sort of embrace that individual or client, and then get them on the right track?
Yeah, it's really difficult, and I see it all the time. Yeah. In some instances, having a kind of a framework where you're walking through and ticking things off is okay, because at least you are doing something.
Sure.
However, if it's just kind of seen as a project that someone over in the corner is doing, ticking things off, then it doesn't work, because then it's kind of outside of the thought process of the rest of the business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas where it works, and I'm always doing surveys and things with clients, and asking them who they identify as being, real champions in this area. And it's the same kind of businesses. And what you always notice from that is that these businesses are ones with strong leadership and strong cultures. Yeah. They have cultures that permeate throughout the business. And you can have as many commitments and policies as you like, and promises to net zero, but for me it's always, how many employees have you got? Have you got 5 or 500 or 5,000?
Yeah.
Because if you can get all of those human beings in the organization acting and thinking and behaving differently, you've changed the culture of the business.
Yes.
And so that employee engagement piece is really important to me. And the educational piece is really important, as is, at the other end of it, getting the whole senior leadership team, the board, on board.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if it's just seen as a sort of side project, that's when it really doesn't work. It's short-lived.
It's getting that buy-in, isn't it? If you get it from the top, it will trickle down.
Yeah.
But without that buy-in, without that investment. Yeah, absolutely. And again, it was very similar with the conversation about inclusion, was that if the culture isn't there, if that education piece, actually, that's actually what she mentioned as well, isn't there, and they don't embrace it, it will never really work. They'll say all the right things and they'll do all the right things on the face of it, but the culture won't embrace it for what it is. And long term, you'll have the same issues over and over and over again.
Yeah, it'll just be a facade. It will be that comms facade that says we do this, we're committed to this. And yet, as soon as you scratch the surface, or as soon as you start talking to employees on the front line, you'll realise that it has no substance. And that's where in this area, people are starting to scrutinise this a lot more, because there's so many claims out there. And that's why greenwashing is now, it's a big deal.
Right.
And we're starting to see companies who, reputational risks are now, reputations are now at risk.
Yes.
And once you lose your reputation, it's quite difficult to get back. So, I'm not about sort of scaring people at all. That's not really my style. But understanding that this is not about telling people, it's about behaviour and what you actually are doing about it. That's the big message, I think.
No, absolutely. And I suppose going forward then, so what does Expert Advice Sleeping Lion, what's the business got going on over the next 18 months? What's exciting?
What's exciting? So for the first time, we've churned out lots of books. That's exciting, sort of in the past, and that's now given us this solid foundation. The Sustainable Business book has been incredibly successful, which is wonderful. And because we've created this planet system, we decided that we wanted to make some of that into online products, basically. So for the first time, we created a suite of Planet System online products. And that includes going from a free ESG audit that anybody can go online and answer 30 questions. And the minute you hit enter, within 90 seconds, your report will arrive in your inbox.
Right.
And it gives you a snapshot of where your business is today to kind of get conversation started.
Yeah. And
then if that's kind of been useful, you can upgrade. And so we have a paid for product where you take a more in-depth self-audit, ESG self-audit. And that comes back to you with a full interactive platform, which allows you to do improvements plans and then communications plans when you're actually doing things. And it's got whizzy dashboards and stuff, which everyone loves a dashboard. And then that sort of morphed into other sort of products. So that's really exciting. And it means that we can kind of live up to our B Corp ambition, which is to be able to say to people, look, if you've got no money at all, we've got something for you. If you've got a little bit of money, buy the book or do the pro framework.
Yeah.
And if you've got a bit more money, then bring us in and we'll hold your hands and take you through the whole kind of process. So we've been able to sort of fulfill that promise, if you like, of making things accessible to people.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then on top of that, because we haven't got enough to do, we thought, well, that works quite well, that tech stuff. So we are now also creating a whole other product called the ACEs system. And that is where people can use an online self-reflection survey to basically look at their strengths and weaknesses generally in business. And that then signposts people to lots of lovely content and learning materials. So
love it.
Yeah, it's all go.
I was going to say, it's to be fair, everything that I've seen on your LinkedIn profile for the last few months has all been go, go, go. So I knew that there was going to be a lot on. I didn't think there was that much going on, but there's certainly a lot, which is amazing. I suppose what I'll do anyway, just for anybody watching, if you want to get your hands on the sustainability book, I'll pop a link in the description below. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure it's on Amazon, right?
Yes, it is. Although you can buy it directly from me, because if anyone's got a problem with Amazon and, you know, they do good stuff.
From a sustainability perspective, yes.
We're not getting into that today. But if anyone does take issue at all with that, then they can also go to the sustainablebusinessbook.com.
Amazing. Right.
And there's other bits and pieces on there.
I'll put a link directly to that as well. So anybody that wants it can click on it. I'll also add a link to your, well, I was going to say, if anyone does want to get in touch with you and talk about their sustainability journey, or in fact, look at maybe the products that you've got, how's best to get hold of you?
LinkedIn, or I would say sustainablebusinessbook.com. That's kind of where a lot of it is. There's also stuff on expert advice online as well. But on LinkedIn.
Perfect. All right,
or
great.
via you. Just
well, either or.
yeah.
What I'll do is I'll put in all the links in the description below.
Amazing.
So if anyone that is tuning into this episode and we've got to this point, please do. I have no doubt that Sarah would love to have more of a chat with you about your sustainability journey and how expert advice in Sleeping Lion can help. Sarah, I want to say a massive thank you to you. I know, as you've just described, how busy you are. So thank you so much for carving out some time to join us today. It's been an absolute pleasure once again.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, I mean, it's always a pleasure chatting to you, and it's always a pleasure chatting to anybody about this sort of stuff. It's good to be busy, but it's, I get energized because in the area I'm in, it's complicated, but it's also really rewarding as well, because we are changing businesses for the better.
No, absolutely. And I'm glad that we've been able to help with spreading the message in whatever way that is. So thank you again. Thank you to everybody joining us for this week's episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is absolutely free. We've got nearly 135 episodes now, and we're looking to grow that further. And that's only going to happen with your support. So please do like, subscribe, and let us know what you think about this episode in the comments below. Thank you again, Sarah. Have a great rest of the week. And don't forget to see us in the next one. Bye-bye.
Thanks.